Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on risk-based testing. I am Pankaj Agarwal, Delivery Manager at 99 Tests, and today's webinar would be conducted by Bharat, who is Director of Operation at 99 Tests and has more than a decade of experience in software testing. Let me lay down the rules of the webinar. If you have any questions during the webinar on any of the topics or any of the articles that are being covered, you may anytime raise a question by typing your question in the question box. We'll be taking the questions at the end of the webinar. Also, we are conducting polls during the webinar. So you would be getting some question pop-ups during the webinar and you can answer those questions. And also do not forget to give rating on the webinar during the poll at the end of the webinar. Over to you, Bharat.
Thank you, Pankaj. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for your time in registering and participating in this webinar. So in this webinar, we are going to cover on risk-based testing, which is a very traditional approach we have been doing. Just that with risk-based testing, now we have a methodology on, and there is an approach on how to go about performing risk-based testing, right? So why are we even doing this risk-based testing, right? So we would have often heard, the testing is the last thing the management want to spend time and money on, right? So so by performing risk-based testing, we would be able to reduce the cost and reduce the time spent on testing an application. So we can also reduce the amount of testing that needs to be done. We can reduce the effort. We would be able to test only the critical features. When we test the critical features based on the risks, we would be able to give a go ahead on the release, so that post release we will be able to concentrate on the low risky components. So focusing on the critical or the high risk components. So when I say components collectively together make an application. So something like a login, a search, a search result, a cart, a settings page together. So these individual features are called components, and these together build an application, right? So when we start focusing on the critical components or features to start with, we would be able to give bugs which would have more value, which has more impact, and developers would be able to start working on these critical fixes on an early stage, rather than focusing on non-critical components. And you'll also be able to identify which part of the system would require more attention at any point of time, right? So, and when we are able to identify the risk of each and every component, this will also help us in to check or to verify how these critical components are healthy, right? So what is risk, right? So this is the possibility of a negative or an undesirable event or outcome, basically a feature or functionality when it is not working as expected, which does not meet the expectations of a requirement, which does not feature which does not behave as expected, right? So this is, and when it breaks, the impact is really high. Every issue has a cost, right? So when I start identifying issues in critical, so when we have issues on these critical components, the cost of a client or a cost of a user leaving an application is really, really high. So the impact and the cost are together forms the risk, right? So how do we identify the risk of a feature, right? So so initially, how do we given a feature or given an application, we quickly prioritize based on, let me start with testing the login and let me go ahead with search. So now there are various approaches, right? So first we go ahead with the requirement. Based on the requirement, we can create a mind map. Based on the design, we can create a mind map. We can brainstorm with the business analyst, with the various project stakeholders, developers, understand the various components that are available in the application, and come up with a risk percentage. How we calculate risk percentage is something you will see down the line during the presentation. A couple of other ways are also previous failures, bugs, and there are other data points which could be used in identifying risk. You can also use Google Analytics, to see the most used feature, the workflows, the user flows, and accordingly categorize your risk. So basically, there is no single way in identifying risk, right? So the risk of component and the approach in identifying risk, there are a lot of ways, and it varies based on the domain, based on the application type, based on the user personas, and more. So there are industry leaders who have come up with these approaches. Like there's an Amlin, James Back, Besson, Chen, Gerald, Schoffer, Stalhein, Hazop. So these industry leaders have come up with various approaches. I'm not going to go into the details of their approach. The focus is going to be more on how 99test approaches the risk-based testing, and how is it using it as part of their testing activity. So this may not be, identifying risk is not a one-time activity. You need to every time revisit the risk percentage, the risk value of each and every component, based on the new features which has been added, based on the the feature updation which has happened, etc. Right? When there is a UI change, even then, the risk percentage would change. So they would, and these risk value would need to be revisited on a periodic basis, so that we do not always rely on the older value and testing. We do not miss out on the critical or the high risk feature, as we have not revisited on this. Right? So how does 99test perform risk-based testing, right? So the moment a client submits their application to us, what we do is split the application into various components and sub-components, and this split can happen into various levels, right? So it is not only on the higher level, it can go up to level 3, level 4, level 5. So what matters is the coverage which we are able to get in terms of splitting the entire application. So the moment you split the entire application, there will be two columns. There is a damage column, there is a frequency column. So the third point that you're seeing in the presentation is we use a formula: risk is equal to damage into frequency. So basically, the moment you say damage, so let us say, for example, login, search, cart, product category. These are the components that we are looking into. So we can put, there will be two columns which will say damage and frequency. Frequency is the number of visits given a component is getting. Damage is what is the impact if this component is damaged, or basically there is it is not functioning as expected. So we have to rate each and every component as 1 to 5 and multiply it. That will give you, it's not going to be an easy multiplication. It's just that there are more formulas into it which we will not be able to expose. However, the moment you multiply, you will get a value which will give you an idea on which is the high risk component. So the moment you focus, so here we go with the thumb rule of 80-20%, right? So the moment you focus on 80% of the application, moment you focus on the component which has 80% of the risk, that will help you to decide on how you can test it. What are the areas which you need to test, and how far you can, how easily or how soon you can release an application. So we start our testing with an high risk components. So this will enable us. So we basically start with exploratory testing. We expose the components which are of high risk, so that the day one we are able to show the clients that we have started with your high risk components, and here are your high risk, here are bugs which your user will be facing in these components, which has been used, which has been used the most, or which is of the highest risk the most. So the client would be able to see value in terms of deliverables from 99test, and this will also impact your ratings, impact your rewards in 99test portal. Right? So once exploratory testing is done on these critical components, we would start designing test cases, and also designing the automation scripts or the workflows on these high critical components. right? So what happens is the moment we start writing test cases, and when there is a release on these test cases, we would be able to, the client would be able to say that, let us run the test cases, or let us run the automation scripts on these critical components, that is these components which make the 80% of the high risk, so that we are sure, or the client is sure, that the cost to the company in terms of failure is less. The failures, we do not lose any users when they have any, we do not lose users because they face any bugs on these critical or the high risk components. So this helps in getting the health of the application on these high risk components, and you are the client, or you will be sure that these high risk components are working fine when you periodically, based on a release cycle, based on how frequent you push to production, how frequent you update your QA or staging environment. So you will be able to understand how the health of the application immediately. So when actual testing, when you start doing this actual testing, apart from your automation scripts, you will actually focus on in-depth and more important bugs rather than the obvious bugs. So this is something which the risk-based testing is going to help you. So a couple of disadvantages, right? So when we say the ratings has to be done, right? So there could be some risk which would go unrecognized. So this would depend on the persons who is evaluating the risk, on the domain knowledge, knowledge of the application, and on various factors of how he or she is calculating the risk. It can be a subjective criteria. So I could see the risk to be for a particular component to be high, but the same risk for the same component could be seen with a different number, maybe a medium risk or low risk by somebody else. So again, it's a perception, right? So it's a subjective call as well as a perception on how each and every person sees risk. So that is why it's the risk calculation, the risk assessment is more of a team effort, where the entire team collaborates and decides and accepts on a the risk percentage of each and every component and the criticality of each and every component. So let me quickly show you presentation the risk calculation that we have done for one of the tool, that is 99test. So what you're seeing right now is the cycle info. So these are the components in our 99test client login, right? So there is a cycle dashboard. There are bugs, test cases, usability. So these are the deliverables which are seen by the clients. The clients would be able to download. There is an integration of the bug tracking tool, the validation of bugs which the client can do. The client can log in and log out, and the functionalities inside registration, login, logout. The dashboard page which shows the list of cycles that are running, the profiles page, and an option to start the cycle, right? So when you see this, so we have been able to give a value for each and every damage and frequency, right? So there is a calculation which happens, and this will give us the components which are the highest risk components. So the start test cycle is 24.2% risk. So cycle info is 24.2 and sign up. So for us, for 99test, a client, when he signs up, he lands on the cycle info page which has the list of cycles running, and he creates a cycle. So this workflow and these components are the high risk components in the 99test client login. So we, or 99test, should take care that at any point of time these three components do not fail, do not break. If it breaks, this would lead to the client not signing up and leaving 99test. So this is how the risk-based testing would help you to prioritize your components and taking care that your high-risk components are healthy, and your high risk components are tested thoroughly, are tested periodically, and there are no bugs, or there are less bugs or less critical bugs which would impact the which would have an impact to your users or to the company. So that would be the end of the presentation. You can of course drop us an email to Bharat and Pankaj. We have displayed our email ID over there. You can connect with us anytime. If you would like to discuss in detail on this risk-based testing on the various methodologies by various leaders, industry leaders, and their approaches, we would be happy to connect with you and discuss in detail.
Thank you, Bharat, for the detailed explanation of risk-based testing. So as Bharat was talking about the perspective of the user has based on the risk. So during the course of the presentation, we ran a poll on an e-commerce application. So we ran a poll on the perception of the users who are participating in today's webinar based on their perception. What do they feel is the most riskiest feature in an e-commerce application? So let us share the results and see so what is the different perception the user is having and how it varies from people to people based on the risk. So right now you can see how the users voted for the different components. So again, I would like to tell you, out of the different attendees, around 70% of you have voted on this, and based on that 70% voting, we can see the payment and confirmation page. According to a customer in an e-commerce application, the payment and confirmation page is the highest or the riskiest feature. And if we go by a customer's perspective, this is the page which should never break, which should never have any issues. So because it builds the trust, as you are paying money, as you are using your card details, and post your payment, you should be getting a confirmation page, confirmation of the order, or maybe an email telling you that okay, your payment is done and your order is placed and you will be getting an item. So this, according to our users today, is the most riskiest feature in e-commerce application. However, the users feel card is not that risky. Similarly, after that, login is 13% risky, and next is product details. So this is the perception of risk based on the category of users we are looking at. Similarly, if we would have asked the same question to the to the developer or a tester or the product owner of the e-commerce website, we might have got different answers. Okay, so now we are open for questions. If you have any questions, you can start typing your questions, and we would be happy to answer all your questions. We have approximately 10 minutes of time where we'll be taking questions and answering all your questions. Okay, we have a question which asks, can you please tell who are the participants in identifying the risk? Are those the developers, the testers, the designers, or who? Anyone?
I think it is, in this case, it has been mostly testers. I think we also have a couple of product owners who are participating in this webinar. So, yeah, so this particular webinar?
No, the question is in general.
In general, okay. So, in general, the stakeholders are the product owners, the business analyst, the testers, the developers, whoever is, everybody involved in the project are in a way the stakeholders of a project, because everybody has their own perception, and coming to a common damage and frequency percentage. I think and agree, when everybody is on the same page and agree on a similar number, that would increase the trust of given a component is high risk or not.
Okay, the next question is, there can be applications where testers are not aware of the domain of the application. So how do we identify the risk there?
So in that case, we would recommend that you do a quick exploratory testing, understand the depth of the app, go through the app. So even if you have not tested, even if you do not know the domain, at least go through the app, see, check out the analytics in terms of the user access, in terms of the purchase, the personas, understand what the app does, create mind maps. So this will give you an idea of what the app does, what is the objective behind this app, what is it trying to solve. So every app has a problem to solve, right? So so understand what the app does. So that is what is called a context driven test approach, right? So you understand the app, go through the app in detail, identify the components, create a mind map of these components, get data in terms of analytics, see the previous bugs that have been logged, and then come up with this number for risk, damage and frequency. And I think that will help you in getting the risk percentage for the components available. So it is not mandatory that you should know the domain, but it's always good when you don't know the domain and what the app is about.
Okay, the next question is from Akhilesh. It says, in which scenario risk-based testing is not recommended?
That's a good question, Akhilesh. So there is nothing called not recommended, right? So when there are a lot of subjective or the perception differs, right? So you would not be able to come up with a single percentage for your components. As we had the scenario where most of the testers recently, the poll that we ran on the e-commerce website, I was surprised that we didn't have cart as a high risk component. So that means that we are not on the same page, right? So I think when we have only a single person and the perception varies, doing an RBT would not be recommended.
We have a couple of questions on frequency of revisiting the risk analysis. So the question is, how frequently should the risk calculation should be reviewed and updated, or are there any set industry standards on it?
So it depends on how frequent release we are doing, how frequent these components are getting updated in terms of feature, in terms of enhancement, the visits of each and every user. So as your website's SEO is really good and the number of visits increases, and you have at some point suddenly people are trying to increase the purchase, maybe to start when you are launching a new product, maybe people are not doing a purchase. So at that point of time, based on the data available, you might say that payment is a risk, low risk. But as the purchase increases, as users have started to purchase, that becomes higher risk. And as you integrate more and more payment options, the risk of that payment component increases. So there is no industry standard on how frequent you have to revisit, but it depends on how frequent you update the application, how frequent you introduce new features into the application, the impact of introducing new feature to other features, and these are the criteria which you need to consider when you for you to revisit the risk percentage.
Thank you for answering this. We have a couple more questions on from Sarath and Nikhil on RBT, which says, in which phase of the testing life cycle should we do risk, RBT or risk-based testing should be done on which phase of the testing life cycle?
Okay, interesting question, right? So the risk-based testing can be done before even testing, during testing phase, and even after testing, right? So so before testing will basically, this will make the entire stakeholders be in a single page in terms of what the application needs to. It's like involving the testers in an early stage of requirement, so that you identify bugs in the earlier stage, you identify the risk and the criticality in the earlier stage, and reduce the impact on the application, reduce the failure rate on the application on the later stage of SDLC. So this would in turn impact or have an impact on the cost of the application or cost of the bug, right? So yeah, so it can be done during requirement, that is before testing, during testing, and after testing, right? So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Does RBT work in agile way of working or agile development?
Of course, right? So it is not linked to any specific methodology, whether waterfall or agile or V model. It does not matter. Here, what the main focus is more about identifying your high risk components. So agile, let's say we are doing a sprint of about a week, right? So we release about five features or five user flows for the 1 week sprint. And how do you speed up your testing, right? So this is where you need to say that these are the five important workflows that has to work whatever is the reason. And in day one, when you test these high risk workflows of your the user stories that you're executing in your sprint, you are sure to say that, hey, I've tested these five critical workflows which has to work whatever should be the reason, and it is working fine. So I think we are 50% good for release, and now you can focus on other medium risk and low risk components, which would give you the confidence to release. Say that in 1 week I have done this, so yeah, the high risk component is working fine, or high risk component has bugs just to be fixed, and accordingly you can plan your release and give a green signal or go ahead for your releases.
Okay. There is another question from Surbhi, and she asks, how do we assure test coverage through risk-based testing?
So test coverage, so that's an interesting question, right? So in 99 test, how we assure coverage for when we do an exploratory testing? So exploratory testing is always considered an ad hoc testing, where people assume that it is done randomly without any coverage. How we handle test coverage is we define components in a way that bugs are logged in those components and we are able to clearly tell. So it is about how we define the components and to what level we define the components. So as the components are defined properly in to a level which we are able to say that yes, the depth of testing is really good, the coverage of testing is really good, we would be able to also show results to say that yes, the coverage of testing is also good. So it depends on how you define the components properly.
Okay, so we have a question from Jaya, and the question is, how will we use risk-based testing approach in a product-based project using automation testing?
Yeah, so if you had seen my last slide, so risk-based is mostly used for test case and automation. So what happens is you identify all the high critical components, or write test cases and have automation scripts for them. So whenever there is a release, you can connect these you can connect the dashboard to your Git or your version repository, and whenever there is a release, what would happen is basically give an indication or give a flag to your testers or to the tool which runs the script that these are that the high critical components have been affected because there is release, and in turn run these scripts, right? So the moment you do that, when there is a push to your QA environment or production environment, this tool which has all the critical components would get notified and in turn invoke your automation script to run all the scripts for those critical components and give you an update saying yes, a push has been done, a new build is available, and your critical components are working fine, or these are the list of bugs after the current push into the staging or the production environment.
Okay, we have time for a couple more questions. So, Gurudat asks, is there any exit and entry criteria for risk-based testing?
Nothing that I am aware of. So entry and exit criteria is basically used for each and every stages of testing. Like when you are getting an application to system testing, you start with entry and exit criteria. It's more for a release plan, right? So I think at least as far as I know or I am aware of, I'm not sure if we have any entry or exit criteria for risk-based testing. So what is most important over here is the risk percentage for the components.
If a tester is working on an agile environment or agile methodology, so identifying of risk should be on sprint basis, or on what basis should the risk be identified?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So you would have already, so I think, yeah, that's when you would revisit. So it depends on that particular sprint, the kind of functionality you're releasing and the impact of those functionality on the existing components. So you would have already made a list of components and subcomponents and would have already created a risk percentage or risk value for these components. So as and when there is a release, you would need to see the impact it has on these components, and the person, because of the release, the users, if they are going to have a if there is a possibility of a bug or not. So I think that would vary. It's again a subjective call. So it is not mandatory to say that you need to revisit your risk value for each and every sprint. It depends on the user stories you're picking up on each and every sprint.
Okay, so last question of the day. I mean, there are a lot of many questions coming. So I'll be taking one more question. So yeah, so if is there a need of risk analysis when we have a very highly managed regression suite?
Yeah, so when you have a highly managed regression suite, you would end up creating, running your, test cases or the automation scripts from, 1 to 10, in whatever order may be. Of course, maybe you would get a result in 1 hour. However, when you are running a suite for your high risk components, which is able to give you results in a shorter period of time, you would be able to take actions. You would be able to take action on a immediately. Your action is going to be quicker than waiting for all your test suite to run and then find out the result, right? So if you can categorize a suite as high risk component, medium risk component, low risk component, and you can prioritize on how frequent you want to run your high risk component, how frequent you want to run the scripts on your low risk components. That will give you a faster result, and that will give you more insights on you'll be able to take actions whenever there are issues on a quicker, maybe on a faster basis. I hope that answers your questions. I think more questions, of course, you can shoot us an email. We'll be happy to connect and answer and also learn from you.
Thank you, Bharat. Thanks for your time for taking up the webinar today and answering all the questions patiently. And thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. So we are conducting a quick poll on the webinar rating based on a scale of 1 to 5. I would request everyone to rate the webinar on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. This will really help us to improve the webinar and the content for future webinars. Moreover, if you have any queries, so based on the time, we couldn't answer all the questions that were coming to us. So if you have any more queries, anything, you can anyways reach to us at our individual email IDs or on our Twitter handles. So you can reach Bharat at bharat@99test.com, and to me at Pankaj PANKAJ@99test.com, and we will be happy to take all the queries or any questions or any clarification you want. Moreover, the presentation and the recording of this webinar would be shared to you in a couple of days. So if you have joined in between or missed anything on the webinar, you would be able to listen to it later. I would again request you to take the poll. It will help us in improving our webinar. Thank you, everyone.